Welcome to Life Stories, where tonight we ask, what would you do if the child you love, the one you raised and protected for a decade, was suddenly treated like a possession, something others believed they had the right to reclaim? She was just a baby, left alone on a doorstep in the pouring rain. No note of love, just a scribbled surrender. But what began as an act of abandonment became the fiercest kind of motherhood, one born not of blood, but of choice. This isn't just a story about custody or family. It's about loyalty, betrayal, and the price of staying when everyone else walks away. And by the end, you'll be asking yourself, who really has the right to call themselves mom? Let's go back to the night everything changed. The night Wren arrived, the sky broke open over Portland like a warning. Not a lullaby rain, the kind that hums you to sleep, but an unrelenting downpour that drowned out the city's usual noise. Maddie Quinn didn't hear the knock at first. She was on her second mug of coffee, a deadline gnawing at her brain, when something pulled her attention toward the front door. A flicker, a shadow, a sensation, almost like someone calling her name in a language only the heart could hear. She padded barefoot across the creaky hardwood, still wearing her old college sweatshirt, stained with paint and memory. She expected a soggy delivery, maybe the neighbor's cat clawing for shelter again. What she found instead froze the breath in her lungs. A baby carrier. Soaked. Unattended. A pale pink blanket clung to the infant inside, water pooling around her tiny form like the world had already given up. "Hello?" Maddie called into the rain, her voice small against the storm. No answer, just the screech of tires vanishing into the dark. The baby didn't cry. That's what terrified her most. Those eyes, wide, dark, too knowing, stared up at her in silence. Maddie dropped to her knees, hands trembling as she reached for the note tucked inside the carrier smudged with rain and panic. "I can't do this. She's yours now." Riley, her sister, the golden girl who vanished 8 months ago without a word. Maddie didn't remember picking the carrier up. She didn't remember walking back into the house. But suddenly, she was there, kneeling in her living room with the baby on the rug and the note curled like a fist in her hand. She called her parents. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" her mother snapped. "Riley left her baby on my doorstep," Maddie said, her voice raw. "There's just a note. I don't know what to do." A pause. Then cold steel. "Well, I suppose she's your responsibility now." "What?" "No, Mom, I can't. She made her decision, and you'll handle it. Quietly, we can't have this getting out. Put Dad on the phone. He's sleeping, and don't raise your voice at me." Maddie stared at the screen as the call disconnected. She looked at the baby, who blinked slowly and made a soft, almost apologetic snuffle. "Just us, then," she whispered. That first night was terror. YouTube videos on infant care playing at half volume, while she fumbled with diapers and formula she had to sprint through the rain to buy. She left the baby alone for 12 excruciating minutes, 12 minutes where she imagined every terrible thing in the world unfolding. And yet somehow, morning came. The birth certificate application left behind was blank, except for one date, December 21, winter solstice, the darkest night of the year. So Maddie named her Wren, a name small and fierce, a bird that sings even in the coldest dawn. For the next 10 years, Maddie Quinn became something she never intended, a mother. Not legally, not biologically, but in every way that mattered. She taught Wren to read, to paint, to ask questions that made people uncomfortable. She worked freelance gigs from her cluttered apartment and turned down better jobs so she could be home after school. She was there for every fever, every violin recital, every broken crayon and whispered nightmare. And no one, not Riley, not her parents, ever showed up. Until now. The knock came again, on a morning more sunlit than the one 10 years ago. This time, Maddie wasn't in a sweatshirt. She was in work clothes, hair still damp from the shower, waiting for Wren to return from a sleepover at Emma's. She opened the door and saw the past, dressed in silk. Riley stood poised, polished. Their parents flanked her, mother with her pearls, father with his avoidant silence. Behind them was a man in a tailored suit holding a briefcase like a weapon. "Hello, sister," Riley said, voice honeyed. We need to talk about my daughter. The world tilted. Maddie gripped the doorframe. You mean the daughter you left in the rain? That daughter? Riley's smile faltered. I was sick then. I've changed. I want her back. The man stepped forward. Miss Quinn, I'm Richard Morton, representing Miss Lowe. We're here to discuss custody arrangements for Wren. The word custody hit her like a slap, but beneath the shock, something ancient stirred, a fury with teeth. You're not coming in, Maddie said, blocking the doorway. And you're not discussing custody of my daughter. She's our daughter, Riley corrected. She was your secret, Maddie shot back. Your shame. That's when the final twist came. Richard Morton adjusted his tie. Miss Lowe is the biological mother, and per the late Eleanor Lowe's will, a trust fund, currently valued at over $2 million, is designated for Riley's firstborn. If and only if the child is raised under the Lowe household. Suddenly it all made sense. The timing, the sudden reappearance, the concern that felt more like choreography than compassion. It was never about love. It was about legacy. Money. Wren wasn't a daughter. She was a key to a fortune. And Maddie? She wasn't just facing a custody battle. She was about to wage war against blood. What would you do if the child you raised was suddenly seen as property by those who once abandoned her? Is love enough when blood and power demand to take back what they willingly gave away? Continue to part 2. As Maddie prepares for battle, she realizes she's not just fighting for custody. She's fighting to prove what makes someone a real mother. Maddie didn't sleep that night. She sat in the dark at her kitchen table, surrounded by the quiet echoes of a home that had raised a child who was never meant to be hers. The note was still in her desk drawer, tucked beneath 10 years of school drawings and homemade Mother's Day cards. She'd read it so many times, the ink had started to blur. She's yours now. But apparently that promise had an expiration date. At 3:07 a.m., she texted Julian West. They're going after her. I need you. By 7 a.m., he was sitting across from her, sleeves rolled, jaw clenched. They're not just filing for joint custody, Julian said after reading through the paperwork Morton left. They're seeking full custody and supervised visitation for you. They're alleging alienation, claiming you intentionally kept Wren from her biological mother and extended family. Maddie's laugh cracked. She left a baby on my porch. There was no family to keep her from. Julian tapped the stack of papers. They're building a narrative that you exploited Riley's mental health, that you made no attempt to facilitate reconciliation. So I'm the villain now? You were always the villain in their version of the story. Maddie stood and crossed to the window. The neighborhood looked the same. Mailboxes, rose bushes, kids on scooters. But something in her had shifted. She wasn't just trying to protect her life anymore. She was trying to protect her truth. That night, Wren came home from Emma's sleepover with a furrow between her brows. Emma's mom asked if I was okay, she said quietly at dinner. She said she saw something on the news about custody. Maddie froze mid-bite. I didn't say anything, Wren added. But is it true? Is she trying to take me? Maddie reached across the table. Baby, listen to me. No one is taking you. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that never happens. Wren hesitated. Why now? After all this time? Maddie couldn't answer. Not yet. But the real answer came 3 days later, in the form of Lucas Bell, a private investigator Julian had brought onto the case. You're going to want to see this, he said, sliding a manila folder across Maddie's kitchen table. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Riley at luxury resorts, at yacht parties, at charity galas, wearing designer gowns with name tags that read philanthropist, time-stamped across the years. All while Maddie had been clipping coupons, pulling all-nighters, choosing secondhand sneakers for Wren so she could afford violin lessons. Is this supposed to surprise me? Maddie asked, voice brittle. Lucas raised a brow. The photos aren't the twist. He handed her a notarized document bearing her grandmother's signature. She left a trust, he explained. $2 million, designated to Riley's firstborn child, on the condition that the child is raised within the Lowe family. Maddie's stomach turned cold. They found out last month when the will was executed. Riley and your parents can't access it unless they're legal custodians. So they don't want her back because they love her. They want her back because she's worth something now. The betrayal burned deeper than Maddie expected. It wasn't just the manipulation, it was the fact that they saw Ren as a thing, not a person. A girl who painted stars on her bedroom ceiling, who hated thunderstorms but loved the smell of rain, who cried when her violin teacher moved away and still wrote her letters. Maddie thought the worst part was behind them. She was wrong. Later that evening, she opened Ren's bedroom door to find her curled up on the floor, clutching her favorite stuffed penguin. "What's wrong?" Maddie whispered, kneeling beside her. "I heard Grandma on the phone," Ren murmured. "She said you stole me." Maddie's heart cracked in half. "That's not true," she said gently. Did you take me?" Maddie pulled her into her arms, holding her like she had the very first night. "No, sweetheart, you were left with me. I didn't take you, I raised you, I chose you, and I'd do it again, every time." Ren's fingers clutched her tighter. "I want to stay with you forever." Maddie's eyes stung. "You will, I promise." But that promise was harder to keep than ever, because the next morning, someone from Child Protective Services knocked on the door. "I'm Diana Ellis," the woman said. "We received a complaint regarding emotional neglect and household instability. I need to conduct a welfare check." Maddie's hands were ice. "They filed reports," Julian said over the phone. "They're trying to build a case. We need to get ahead of this." Maddie had always thought she knew what strength looked like. Muscles, armor, conviction. But in that moment, strength was staying calm while her daughter's future hung by a thread. She looked at Diana. "Would you like some coffee while we talk?" Because if they were going to take her life apart, they'd have to sit in it first. "Do you believe love and truth are enough to protect someone you love, especially when power and wealth rewrite the rules?" The battle has begun. But what Maddie doesn't know yet is that someone else, someone unexpected, is about to tip the scales. Continue to the next part to see how far a mother will go when love is the only weapon she has left. The courtroom was ice cold. Not from the air conditioning. It was the kind of cold that sank beneath your skin, where silence held its breath and justice hovered like a ghost, waiting to be summoned. Maddie sat beside Julian, palms pressed flat against her thighs, trying not to tremble. Across the aisle, Riley sat surrounded by moneyed stillness, designer coat, picture-perfect parents, and a lawyer who looked like he billed by the breath. On the table between them, a life. 10 years of memories reduced to exhibits and statements. Judge Marlowe adjusted her glasses and shuffled the papers before her, her expression unreadable, impenetrable. And then she spoke. "We're here today to determine whether custody of Ren Lowe will remain with Madison Quinn or be transferred to her biological mother, Riley Lowe." Maddie's heart stopped at the sound of Ren's full legal name. Not for long, she whispered to herself. Ren had already made her decision. She'd filled out the forms herself. She'd drawn hearts around Maddie's name. Julian stood, clearing his throat. "Your Honor, we submit Exhibit A." He tapped his laptop. The speakers in the courtroom crackled to life with Riley's voice, tinny but unmistakable. "Just take her for a few weeks. I can't do this right now. I'll send money. Just don't tell Mom and Dad." Julian looked at the judge. "This message was left the night Ren was abandoned on my client's doorstep." Across the courtroom, Riley's face tightened. Julian continued. "We also submit statements from Frances Hayes, a neighbor who witnessed the drop-off. From Patricia Mendoza, the former housekeeper who overheard discussions of the trust fund. And from Lucas Bell, a private investigator who uncovered financial documents showing Riley and her parents' intent to pursue custody only after learning the trust required Ren to be raised within the Lowe family." There was more. Voicemails, texts, emails where Riley called Ren a ticket out. But Julian saved the final piece for last. "Your Honor, with your permission, we'd like to call Ren Quinn to the stand." A small hush fell over the room. Maddie turned, breath caught, as her daughter stood from the hallway and walked in. Not a child, not anymore. She wore a deep blue dress and had braided her hair herself. There were tiny smudges of pink glitter on her fingers, left over from the card she had made that morning. She looked radiant, brave, terrified, but she looked like Maddie's girl. "Do you understand what it means to tell the truth?" the judge asked gently. "Yes, ma'am," Wren said. "It means you speak from your heart, even when it's hard." "Tell us about your life," Judge Marlowe said. Wren took a deep breath. "I live with Maddie. She's my mom. She's the one who taught me how to make pancakes and ride a bike. And when I got pneumonia in second grade, she stayed up with me for 5 nights straight." She paused, looking over at Riley, then back to the judge. She didn't leave. Not once. The courtroom was still. "I don't remember being born," Wren said, "but I remember everything since. I remember being chosen. That's more important to me than DNA." She stepped down from the stand, and as she passed Maddie, she reached out and took her hand. Maddie clutched it like a lifeline. It was the first time she felt like she might win. The judge called a recess. In the hallway, Riley approached them. Her face was pale, her lipstick smudged. "She's mine," she whispered. "No," Maddie said softly. "She was yours, and you gave her away. You don't get to rewrite history just because the money got interesting." Riley's eyes welled. "You don't understand. I didn't want to need her to matter. I wanted to be someone without her." "You were someone," Maddie said. "But you chose to disappear. She became someone because I stayed." Back in the courtroom, Judge Marlowe returned to her bench. The finality in her voice was unmistakable. "I have reviewed all evidence. It is the opinion of this court that the child's best interests are being served in her current home. Custody will remain with Madison Quinn. Any future contact must be initiated by the child, not imposed by the biological family." There was a gasp from Riley's side. Her mother stood furious, but the judge raised a hand. "This is not a punishment," she said firmly. "This is protection. Let's not confuse the two." Gavel down. It was done. Maddie didn't cry until they were home, until Wren curled up beside her on the couch and whispered, "Does this mean we're really safe now?" Maddie kissed her forehead. "It means no one can take away what we've built. Not now. Not ever." The next week, they sat in a quiet office with a notary. "I, Wren Quinn, choose this name," she read from the form in her hand, her voice clear and steady, "because it's the name of the person who never let me go." They signed the papers together. That night, they baked celebration cookies, Wren's specialty, chocolate chip with sea salt. The TV buzzed in the background with muted headlines about the Lowe family's legal troubles, about the trust fund investigation, about reputation and consequence. But none of it touched their house. Not anymore. As Wren fell asleep, Maddie watched her chest rise and fall, hand curled around the stuffed penguin she'd had since that first stormy night. It could have all gone differently. If Maddie hadn't opened the door, if she hadn't fought, if love hadn't held the line. But she did. She stayed. And for once, staying was enough. How did this story make you feel? Were you moved by Maddie and Wren's journey? If you loved this story, comment 100 below. Where are you watching from? Share this video with a friend who needs a reminder that love, when chosen, is the strongest bond of all. Thank you for watching Life Stories.